Want to stop juggling spreadsheets, calendars, and a dozen apps just to run your rentals? Logify makes it easy. It's an all-in-one toolkit for hosts. Build a direct booking website, automate guest messaging, and keep all your channels in sync. Running your rental business your way has never been simpler. And for Good Morning Hospitality listeners, you can get 20% off any yearly plan with code GMH20. Just check the link in the show notes to get started today.
Welcome to Good Morning Hospitality, your one-stop shop for the latest news, noteworthy trends, and thought-provoking discussions across the industry. From hotels and short-term rentals to all things travel and hospitality, you'll find each episode equips you with the information you need to start your week. Join us on Good Morning Hospitality every Tuesday, wherever you get your podcasts. Good morning, Sarah.
Good morning, Leo. How is it going, buddy?
I'm good, my friend. We're in the midst of a heat wave over here in the UK. Like, it's all going on. London is 33 degrees right now. Can you believe it?
Yeah. It's like 31 in my apartment right now. I have no air conditioning. I have a fan on. And as you can see, my hair has never looked worse. So
I quite like it. I like it. It's voluminous is how I would describe it.
It's just, we call it frizzy, I think, anywhere else. But I'll take voluminous. We'll take it.
But the man who's follically challenged, though, I look on it with envy. Nothing short of envy, my friend. Well done, you. But I've got to say, we're going to be a little bit smug because obviously it's heat wave territory, but we're a rather cool 25 degrees here at the beach. So it's great. Dropped my daughter off at nursery this morning. I've already had a walk along the seafront. They'll be swimming later. There'll be a bit of a workout in our air-conditioned gym next to the seafront. So this is a day where you look at each other, you look at your partner and you go, aren't you pleased we moved out of London? Because, right now it's sweltering over there.
Absolutely the right choice. Yeah, good job.
Now, I know it's hot in Barcelona and summer is well and truly upon you. So you've been music festivaling, all sorts of fun stuff, right?
I have, buddy. Yeah, the one yesterday was pretty crazy, actually. One of our favorite artists came, Charlotte DeWitt, and we were gutted because we got tickets to Tomorrowland. And last year she closed it out in Brazil. And so we knew she was coming this year, but they don't tell you which week. And she's not coming the weeks that we got tickets. And so we were absolutely gutted. And then we found out she was coming to Barcelona. So we got tickets. We were stoked. And it was absolutely incredible. Except at the very end, like 30 minutes before the end of the night, pretty much. I guess somebody was trying to steal from somebody, like a pickpocket situation. And a can of pepper spray went off in the crowd, like 10 meters from me. And it was madness. Like everybody just dispersed. Although classic Barcelona, the music did not stop, and within 5 minutes, everybody was back on the dance floor again. So, yeah,
love it. I mean, I don't love the pepper spray, but I love the attitude. Let's get back to dancing as quickly as possible.
Yeah, it's like, honestly, forget these guys. Like, try and ruin our party. We're here to see Charlotte.
Lively. I love it. Well, I had a very surreal experience a couple of weeks ago or last week. God, time's flying, isn't it? It's probably last week, wasn't it? Where Sarah and I actually got to hang out together in Barcelona. And then we had a good, amazing drinks party. And then we went and got food. Well, kebab, I think we got in the end. But we went and we were wandering the streets of Barcelona together. It was so much fun. I loved it.
I think a kebab dinner is pretty much the perfect way to end a night at the pub. Yeah. I think
don't pretend.
The kebab was pretty good. I got the extra on you to add cheese, and you were glad I did that. Nice.
Absolutely. Yeah. I always listen to Sarah where late night dinner is involved in Barcelona. I was in her hand. I knew I was in safe hands. I knew I wasn't going to be taken somewhere mediocre. That was never going to happen, was it? But no, I loved it. And like, I don't know, there was just a real, people listening, if you've not been to Barcelona, book a flight immediately because it's so much fun. But it sparkles on evenings like that, right? When the sun's gone down and it's cooler, people are sat out having their dinner and drinks and things. It was magical. And obviously I had magical company and conversation with you, my friend.
Well, we tried to go to an actual restaurant a couple of times, right, before we found the kebab shop, and that was at like 10 p.m. and they told us the wait was 45 minutes. So if that ever was Spain in a nutshell for you, where everyone else, the kitchen is being closed, Spain has a 45 wait.
I suppose the advantage of the kebab shop was it stopped us drinking anymore, which was a good thing, which I was happy for the next morning.
Yeah, they don't serve alcohol, I don't think. A lot of them don't. It's just Coca-Cola and water, which was great. It was a good life choice for us.
Well, if you missed it this time, guys, come again. We will do more of them. I think we're planning the next one will be in London, I would imagine, probably in the autumn. And look, we've got lots to talk about, so let's get into it. There's lots popping off this week, especially even something that's come in over the weekend, which I would say at this point is super early, which is Airbnb's changes to its payment terms, which we're going to go into later. We are like really fresh on this one, so yeah, keen to get people's thoughts, keen to hear from the audience on this, because this is seismic if it comes through the way that it looks like Airbnb are planning to implement it. But before we do that, let's do some highlights. So what caught my eye this weekend was the Island Escapes, which is a property management company on the Isle of Man, which, Sarah, I know you won't have been to.
I haven't, and I've always wanted to go. So now maybe this is my sign.
There you go. You should go. So my grandma lived her last years on the Isle of Man. She lived there for 20 odd years. Had a very happy time as a retired lady there. So it does. I have very fond memories. Beautiful place, just off the coast between Ireland and the UK. So there's the company there, Island Escapes, run by John Keggin, who's a top guy I've met a couple of times. He's grown a great business there, 150 properties, and they've been acquired by Sapphire Holidays Limited, which is a company that I hadn't heard of until now, but they're clearly making waves. They've got classic cottages, Aspects Holidays, boutique rentals, unique hideaways, and the group now, including Island Escapes, consists of 2,500 properties. So very exciting. Great to see this activity going on in the space. Congratulations, John, who's going to stay on as commercial director. Sarah, what do you think?
I love this kind of stuff, Leo. I gotta say, in a lot of the mergers that we're seeing and acquisitions lately, I think we're getting much more back to basics of what our industry used to be. I think with all the regulation in a lot of the major urban centers, which has got all kinds of, I can't think of the word in English, polemia right now. Like there's all kinds of political zhuzhing going on and people not liking it, and it's creating havoc. I think it's really nice that it seems like the industry is responding and saying, okay, fine, do what you want. We're still going to fight the stuff in the urban centers, but we're going to get back to our roots and we're going to really focus on what traditionally was a vacation rental, which oftentimes is not in those urban centers. And I think that for me is like a big difference between when I think of the word like an Airbnb, for example, versus a vacation rental. For me, an Airbnb could be really centric. Maybe I'm wrong there, but like I could think of an Airbnb in the city center. But if I think of a vacation rental, I don't think of somewhere in the city center. And so I really liked this initiative. I also liked that they have a lot of unique properties and property types that maybe you don't see so often. And I think bringing that kind of unique supply to the market and giving it a bigger platform, obviously, to get more reservations and get it in front of more people, I think that's fabulous. So I was excited to read about this one.
Yeah, I agree. I'm really pleased that a wider group is looking at the Isle of Man in general, because it's a beautiful place to go on holiday. As the UK gets warmer and the summers get hotter, it's really coming into its own. It's a bit chilly if you want to go swimming in the Irish Sea. I'll say that. I'll say that as someone that's done it a couple of times. But it certainly will be good for the tourism board for the island. You know, the tourism board will be delighted by this, I think, as it links to the inventory of this wider group. You might see repeat guests who stayed with this group coming over to the island. I think that would be very welcome by locals who know that they're onto a good thing there, but I don't think they're anywhere near the point of being at quote unquote over tourism numbers. So there we go. Okay, great. Another one that caught my eye. This is just funny and also just a sign of the times. I think we may have focused on this when it was announced that the 90s Britpop band Oasis, and you don't need to apologize if you don't understand what I just said there, if you're because I don't think they ever made it across the pond to America. So if you're one of our American cousins,
they did. I asked my dad about it the last time you mentioned it, because I was like, oh, it's a band. Once we got into the conversation, I thought it was some kind of like, I don't know, type of hotel chain or something. My dad was like, oh, you don't need to know Oasis, they suck. I was like, okay, thanks, Dad. So that's all I know about Oasis. I've never listened to their music though, but according to my dad, they suck. So
I've never argued with your dad, and I'm not going to start now. So, you know, if that's what he thinks, let's go for it. But anyway, it seems that fans disagree with your dad. So Oasis fans charged up to £480 per night to camp. That's right, camp in a garden near Heaton Park, which is where they're playing one of their reunion gigs that we focused on a couple of months ago. This is huge. Fans of Oasis, this is huge. For many people in the UK, and certainly that part of the world, they would say this is the biggest band they've ever... It was their first love, their only love in musical terms. So you can get away with charging a little bit for it. Its access to the festival is approximately 10 minutes walk And the price includes secure camping space for 4 people, secure parking space, loos, and shower. Guys, £480 tonight. What is going on? Now, let Airbnb have confirmed now the listing has been removed from the platform. So, no need to send a strongly worded email. But come on, this is opportunism at its worst, right?
I disagree with Airbnb for taking it down, and I think it's actually a bargain. Think about any other festival, right, where you have worse conditions. You probably don't have showers. I'm sorry, you're a 10-minute walk, and you get to bring your car, so you can have all of your stuff. You get to bring your own tent, and it's for 4 people. £480 divided by 4 people. It's a bargain. So I don't know what they were thinking. I would be stoked to stay there, actually. Also, it did say posh showers, which means it's not just like a hose out back, And they,
Let's hope
you know,
not. Let's hope not. Let's
so
hope not.
I think it's a steal and a bargain. You're right next to the venue. If you need to, I don't know, go home and change, you can mid concert, whatever. I'm a fan. I would definitely stay there. It's way nicer than what I'm paying a lot more for to stay at in Tomorrowland, let me tell you. So
I love it, Sarah. You completely given the counter narrative. I love this. When we were WhatsApping about this, gang, she was saying to me, it's better than staying in a cemetery for free. So there you go. You're pro people putting their back gardens on Airbnb and fleecing people for all their money, right?
Absolutely. Welcome, capitalism, buddy. Come on, bring it on. Shame on Airbnb, actually. Who are they? If people are willing to pay it, I don't know. It's supply and demand in the market. People have access to a shower. As long as the description isn't incorrect and they're very clear upfront about what it is and the photos are real, who is Airbnb to take a listing off like that if people are willing to book it? Sorry. The one that they should have taken off is that terrible car park one that I stayed at in Paris. That one should have been taken down because that was not even. And they didn't tell you it was in the middle of a car park because that was it was a misleading listing. But these guys are telling you you're camping and you're bringing your own gear.
Yeah.
So
I think you make a good point. You're very convincing. You've convinced me of this. You're right. Be what you say you are in the listing and you can't complain. Okay, fair. Okay, well, that's good. We'll keep an eye on this one now. I've had an excuse to talk about Oasis again, so thank you for indulging me. What caught your eye this week, my friend?
Yeah, what caught my eye, which is one that I love. I can't tell you how many times I have gotten in a fight. Shocking, I know, with someone when I go to get board my flight, especially when I first moved here, because back when I first moved here, there were no low budget airlines, at least and also I didn't really fly in the US because I basically moved when I was 20. So I had done very little traveling. And every normal airline, you get a personal item and you get a carry-on and nobody says anything and it's not a problem. And I remember the first time I came to Europe and rode on Ryanair, I was done a massive fight with the lady. I was like, what do you mean? Of course I get a carry-on and a personal item. What's wrong with you? What do you mean pay you €80 for? No, come on. So yes, I often fight with these people. The last few times, because they actually did already turn this down. So basically what's going on is that the EU is looking to ban the carry-on fees that a lot of airlines are charging. This ban actually did go through in Spain. Spain is one of the countries that is most behind this. This actually went through, I want to say, almost 2 years ago. And in fact, Mauro the other day, because he's so organized, looked up every single flight we've had in the last 2 years because it's 2 years retroactive when they put the new law in place. And you can actually ask all the airlines to give you the money back that you paid for all the extra baggage fees, which we've already done. So we have submitted our stuff. We went full Karen on them. So yeah, I think it's actually great. The airlines basically are arguing, oh no, but this is going to reduce consumer choice and it's going to raise prices and whatever. I don't care. Let me pay a fair price. I don't need a 10-pound flight or a 12-pound flight. That's part of why people travel too much as it is and don't choose trains, as you would say, Leo. But if I'm flying on a plane and it fits in the overhead compartment, what's wrong with you? I don't know. Have a weight limit, fine. And so this one does actually, it's a lower weight limit than normally there is right now. So I think right now when you pay for a carry-on in most airlines, it's 10 kilos. So about 22 pounds. And this would be 7 kilos, which is about 15 pounds. So it's definitely a slight reduction. I could see the budget airlines being like, okay, we have to do this. And then they weigh your bag and then they ruin your life. Because whose bag weighs 7 kilos? Definitely not mine. Definitely not mine. It's true.
More likely mine. More likely mine.
Yeah, the joke is on them because I always put my heaviest stuff in my backpack because I'm up to their tricks, you know? So I put my heaviest stuff in my backpack, and then I have a mini bag inside my backpack, and then I always shove my backpack up anyway. So
I knew, by the way, I knew that this would get your opinions going. I knew it. When I sent it to you, I was like, just like this. It's like when you send me a train article, you know what you're doing. It was late there. I bet you didn't sleep. I bet you were just like, adrenaline rush for 2 hours after I sent it to you. Cruel, right? So I'll say this: why can't there be enough room in the overhead lockers for everybody's bags? You know, like, so I think there's some logic in pulling down what's allowed, so making the carry-on requirement smaller, as you say, and then just allowing everybody to so you can have a bag under your seat and a bag. You know, they're your two spaces, right? It might not be right next to you; it might be across the aisle or down the corridor, whatever. But everyone knows that they've got a space above and a space below, and if you can fit a bag below and a bag above, then you're fine. But again, it would just need to be smaller, right? Because I agree, there's nothing more stressful than being like, oh, going on this flight, and unless I make sure that I'm the first person on, I'm going to get there and there's going to be no space left in the overhead luggage compartment. That's the real stressful bit, isn't it? And I agree, anything that makes the experience better for consumers like that is worthwhile. Just relax and go, right. And then, you know, let's just sell a range of bags that are travel safe, that work within that space. Also, guys, let's think about softer bags. You know, get it a bit softer, and then you can squidge it up a bit more. You know, all of that good stuff. Yeah, I mean, I don't think I care as much as you, Sarah, because I obviously just travel with one backpack because I don't have hair, and I just pack a t-shirt, pants, and socks when I go anywhere. So I shove it all into my rucksack in a way.
You don't need things. I'm a woman. I need things. I need wares. You know.
Yeah. I get it, and I'd support you. You know, if we were traveling together, I'd give you some of my baggage space. You can have it happily, but I don't need it. So, when I saw it, I thought, well, Sarah's going to care for sure. But yeah, noticing like it is a bit stressful because even sometimes I just travel with a rucksack, but it might be a bit too big to go below me, so I'd rather put it up. But by the time you get there, if you're not in the queue, everything's gone, and it does make for a suboptimal experience. And as we talk about all the time on this pod, you know, airlines should be looking to provide, just like hotels, cruise ships, short-term rentals, whoever else we're talking about, should be looking to provide a nice experience, and you know, like, make sure that there's someone from the flight crew, walking down the aisle and helping people put the bags away so that they optimize the space in the most efficient way. I think why not, right? And I also think that let's treat consumers fairly. Let's not just treat them like cattle when they're herded onto a plane and treated badly. And I also agree with you, Sarah, like, let's lose this mentality that the flight should just be as cheap as possible and as awful as possible, because I think that, yes, that attracts some consumers who are looking to spend money, but there's also people who would be willing to spend a little bit more just to be treated nicely on a plane and be able to have their bag put up, right? Like, you know, you like make the experience of flying nicer, which is why generally I try and fly British Airways even when I'm going short haul, because that's the experience I get as the consumer. And they are more relaxed about the baggage allowance and things like that, you know, and there is more space generally. And you feel like you can get up and walk around and stretch your legs without being stared at, because they're not trying to sell you a scratch card, or there's the third round of them trying to sell you a Coke, you know? Frustrating.
If they really wanted to improve the experience, what they should do, this is my other soapbox about getting on a plane, it doesn't make any sense, the groups that they have. Why is group 1 not everybody on a window seat? Group 2 is everybody on a middle seat. And group 3 is everybody on an aisle seat. And then they can divide them even further into groups by the back of the plane, middle of the plane, end of the plane. And then you don't have people in front of you trying to put their bag, and then you're all held up. There's just so much that they could do to improve the experience. I think ultimately they don't care. They're just out for money. And that's the whole, it's under the guise of a cheap flight. But like, a cheap flight nowadays, they are not that cheap, especially if it's anywhere that you actually want to go. And by the time you add your bags, I mean, Mel and I were looking at flights the other day. We were thinking about going to the Canaries, and it was 630 euros, I think, for the flights, which is expensive.
Wow.
And to add the bags was another 250. Like they upcharged. So the carry-on luggage was 119 per person. That's crazy. Like that's what the flight should cost.
I was going to say, surely now the Canary Islands are perpetual spring, aren't they? So everyone's trying to escape the heat, right? So they can really mark up the flights from Spain, can't they? Because they know people are trying to escape the heat. Yeah. Supply and demand metrics again. Okay, great. Well, I enjoyed that. I've enjoyed your opinions on everything. You've come in hot today. You really have. Like, wow, I like this. You should trade more often. This is fantastic.
the humidity.
The hair, the humidity, and the pepper spray. What a combination. Okay, we've got to talk about it. So this came onto my radar. I was camping this weekend, actually. So I went for a digital detox thing. We camping again with the kids. Oh my God, it was beautiful where we were, on a hillside campsite up in the South Downs. So signal was patchy at best, but when I did pop to the top of the hill and I got signal, I noticed a large amount of chatter on LinkedIn and Instagram about what has happened. So Airbnb is a hot topic for property managers and hosts. These new payout policies, I think, represent a significant shift in the risk that you taking a booking on Airbnb, and then who controls the experience. And again, it seems, and again, maybe too early to judge, but it seems like it's more power to Airbnb. Are we witnessing here a hegemon continuing to take its suppliers for granted, knowing that really their big prize is the guest and the inventory is the inventory? I don't know. It feels like it is. And is this mostly to do with the fact that they need to improve their business for their shareholders, and then they're less concerned now about being well liked within the industry? Let's see. Let's dive in. So, okay, Airbnb has announced major updates to its payment terms. First one: reserve now, pay later. Guests can book without immediate payment, and they have up to 72 hours before check-in to pay. If they don't, then Airbnb will cancel the booking. No payout to the host. So maybe we just go through these one at a time, because I don't want us to lose anything in the focus here. This overrides whatever cancellation policy you have in place. So on the surface, this looks like a really, really difficult one for a property manager and host to then plan what revenue they're going to make, because people have up to 72 hours before. And we all know 72 hours before, very unlikely that you're going to rebook, certainly at the price that you would have initially made for a booking. What do you think, Sarah?
Yeah, I think this whole thing is a really clear shift that Airbnb has been making for quite some time now, which makes it really evident that their focus is on the guest and not on the host. So we had something similar with all the cancellation policies during COVID. Like, for me, what would have been fair is a 50-50, reimburse 50% and let the host keep 50% if it was paid already. That would have been fair, but I think even there, they took the side of the guest always. I don't know if it's to improve the vision of their shareholders or not. That I can't really comment on, but it does seem like they don't really care as much about the host as they used to. I think as well, this is kind of evidenced by what they did earlier in the year, where they removed a bunch of underperforming listings. So they do seem to be focusing more on having the quality of listings that they want on the platform. I don't know if this is a move in the right direction. Like the former one, removing underperforming listings, that one at least I kind of get, because they want to have some kind of quality control across the platform. But I think this is going to make hosts a lot less likely to stay on with Airbnb if it starts to really impact their business. The book now, pay later is something that a lot of the other OTAs do to their credit. However, if you do this on like Booking or Vrbo, you do have, like, basically you put in a credit card. So it says, you book now, you pay later, but it automatically charges your credit card, or whatever you've entered, your debit card, whatever it is. So you're still like honoring the cancellation policy of the host. You're still not getting that money back. If it's not part of the cancellation policy, if you cancel too soon, they don't cancel the booking. But at least the host gets something. So I don't know. I think for the guests, maybe it's okay. For a host, I think it sucks, honestly. And I think as well, a lot of this might be going towards the immediacy culture that I think we're living in today. I think everybody wants everything now. And I think that they want flexibility, and they want the option to be able to cancel whenever they want, book last minute, do everything last minute, kind of on a whim. And I don't know. I think for the hosts, I think it's a tough one to reconcile, especially as you say, like, it's very unlikely they're going to get another booking for a similar or higher amount that close to the date of stay, unless there's some big event going on or something. So I don't know. I think it's a for a host, I think it sucks.
I think you're onto something with I was going to make a similar point. So classic you, Sarah, all over it as always. This is a reaction to what guests want ultimately, right? So it's about being guest centric. So, if you're writing out the pitch deck internally, so this is what happens, right? Ideas get floated around at big companies, and someone has to write the press release for it before they do anything else, right? And everyone goes around and goes, oh, how would that land? It's a great message, isn't it, to say that we're becoming even more guest centric, because I haven't booked my summer holiday yet. And we're booking it less than, and we've even got kids, right, which makes us a bit more logistically challenged with these things. So it is a reaction to wanting for things to happen last minute and being able to service that guest where they are. But as a consequence, you're essentially making a bet. Airbnb are making a bet that they can take their suppliers for granted by focusing on their guest. And this idea of it being a partnership, supplier and Airbnb servicing a guest, goes out the window. It's Airbnb servicing a guest and the supplier being, the place that you lay your head at the end of the night. We've seen it with experiences. We've seen exactly the same attitude permeating from Airbnb. And here is exactly the same. But when you look at the data, and, I think I've read this. I think I've seen Jamie Lane put things on about this. 80% of Airbnb's supply is one listing, right? So you've got your one listing host who is not a full-time job. So most likely it's not a full-time job. So you're making a bet that person doesn't have the time or the bandwidth to go and find a new place to get most of their bookings from. And again, I think I've seen this stat: 50% of Airbnb's inventory is unique to Airbnb. So, do you just become that dominant in a market that you can start to take your suppliers for granted? Therefore, we're going to make things a little less comfortable for them. Oh, we're going to make them a little less comfortable again, a little less comfortable again. And before you know it, your revenue takes a hit as a host, but you have no other mechanism for finding your booking. And that's where I think that's the gamble from Airbnb. That's the gamble point, because distribution is being flattened by AI. And as a reaction to it, they are trying to get more loyalty from their traveler. But as a reaction to that loyalty to the traveler, they might just find the host goes elsewhere. And as a consequence, the walls that they've built around their hosting community might start to tumble down. And if they tumble down, because it becomes very, very easy to get your bookings from, let's just say hypothetically, Instagram, ChatGPT, and all of that stuff gets flattened, you then don't have the same proposition that you have. So I think at this point they're gambling, and certainly that position they have within the market of having, let's say, 80% of single hosts and maybe 50% only listing on Airbnb, they're the metrics that I would look at and say they look a bit precarious to me right now, given where we are. What do you think?
I would totally agree with that. I think as well, they're really pushing the limits, and people can only take so much. So eventually when you push too hard, what's going to happen? Somebody who just has one property, who's never really thought about getting a PMS or a channel manager or looking elsewhere for distribution, is going to start looking elsewhere. And guess what they're going to find? Tons of OTAs, tons of platforms where they can list their property. Maybe they make their own direct booking site for the first time because they decide to get a PMS and it's included free. It's like, hey, we'll give you a Wix site or whatever it is to make your own booking, which most PMSs offer these days. Like, I think it's a big gamble. And I think there has to be more of a balance if they're going to maintain a lot of that inventory. And as you said, I think as well, like that's one of the things for me that makes Airbnb unique. I noticed that when I'm looking for accommodation, there is so much inventory that is unique that you don't see on the other OTAs. And I think this puts that at risk. I think it means that a lot more of their inventory is going to be listed on multiple sites. And maybe once they start listing on multiple sites, Airbnb is in for a rude awakening, and people realize that actually, like, they're getting more bookings from somewhere else. And maybe eventually it gets to the point where, like, okay, if 10% of my bookings are coming from Airbnb, either I just leave it on or I get rid of them altogether and just kind of go it solo. So I think it's a huge risk. It's not one I would take as Airbnb, but yeah, I don't know. If I'm a host, that's exactly what I'm thinking now. I'm thinking, okay, I've been pushed too many times. Now I'm going to start looking for alternatives. And it's so easy to find an alternative. All you have to do is like how to get bookings that aren't on Airbnb, and you're going to find tons of PMSs. You're going to find tons of other places where you can list your property. And realistically, like if you get a PMS or a channel manager, it's easy. You have all the information in the PMS. You then are better at managing your listing anyway, because it's going to unify all that stuff. So all of your guest communications and things like that. I don't know. I think it's just going to push people towards looking for alternatives, and it's never been easier to find them.
Yeah, it feels to me like a little bit like Uber taking its drivers for granted. And also essentially like being able to raise the price because you kill all the competition, right? Which is what they've steadily done. Although I'll choose my words carefully because we know Will loves Uber, so I'm sure he's listening. But the difference there is that in the Uber example, they're moving to their bet is they're moving to driverless cars, right? Autonomous vehicles. That, like with Airbnb, they're always going to need a supplier. That's the business model, and that supplier is then much more likely to vote with their feet, ultimately, and make a decision to move on. The other ones we should quickly touch on. Let's do it as one, just because I think we have done this article properly, but is the chargeback liability shift. So hosts may now be held financially responsible for a guest chargeback even after checkout, regardless of the cancellation policy, which to me feels strange because Airbnb is the merchant of record and has the relationship with the guest and limits access to the guest. And the third one, flexible payment schedules. Airbnb can delay or adjust payouts for certain bookings at its discretion. So yeah, I think a sort of control dynamics, what you can see this as an increase, both those ones, isn't it? An increase. So yeah, I think it's fair to say we'll probably mention this again next week because we're going to get some press coming out, I'm sure, emerging over the next couple of days, or potentially Airbnb rowing back. Because again, we're in the infancy of this story. So yeah, Sarah, any final thoughts on that before we let you wrap for the day?
I'm interested to see the backlash. I think it's going to be a lot bigger than Airbnb thinks. And especially, I think the proof will be in the pudding. So it's one thing to say we're going to do these things and we're going to potentially adjust your payouts and stuff. But at the first time that Airbnb, and you're a host, the first time Airbnb actually screws you over, you're going to think long and hard about listing elsewhere at a minimum, if you're not already listed elsewhere. And if they do it too often and it starts really messing with your revenue, you're going to go somewhere else. Why wouldn't you? I mean, I know most people, when they're looking for a property, at least I do, I look at 2 or 3 different OTAs. So it's not like and I do that because I know that there's some of those OTAs have unique inventory. But if that starts going away, I'll just book somewhere else. I don't care. Yeah,
I think that's right. And because I'm already looking, when we look at Europe now, we're already looking Holiday Home to Go at those 2 different platforms for that exact reason. Because I feel like we've talked about on the pod, they've gone deeper in those markets. So I think the shine has come off this idea that you start on Airbnb. Booking.com's always had that ever-present feel, right? Because they've got hotels as well, side by side. So that always gets a look. But yeah, I agree. When I'm thinking Europe, I now don't necessarily always think of Airbnb. It's very interesting. All right, Sarah, close us out.
Well, thank you so much for joining us today. If you have liked this episode, please hit like, share, subscribe on all the usual social channels. Follow us on LinkedIn, and we will see you guys next week.
Want to stop juggling spreadsheets, calendars, and a dozen apps just to run your rentals? Logify makes it easy. It's an all-in-one toolkit for hosts. Build a direct booking website, automate guest messaging, and keep all your channels in sync. Running your rental business your way has never been simpler. And for Good Morning Hospitality listeners, you can get 20% off any yearly plan with code GMH20. Just check the link in the show notes to get started today.